Welcome to This Explainer, where we're investigating the absolute mystery surrounding the 2026 World Cup soccer ball and asking if it's truly to blame for some wildly uncharacteristic goalkeeping errors. If you've been tuning into the tournament, you've definitely noticed the trend. We are talking about world-class goalkeepers fumbling saves that should be totally routine. It's raising eyebrows everywhere, right? Fans are scratching their heads wondering what on earth is going on down on the pitch. So today, we're going to put the Adidas Trionda ball under a microscope. We're going to use some cutting-edge aerodynamic research to separate fact from fiction and uncover the invisible forces actually at play here. Let's dive right into this by looking at a pretty striking accusation from former England keeper Joe Hart. Working as a pundit for the tournament, Hart noticed something really peculiar about this Trionda ball. He pointed out that it is acting incredibly deceptively in the air. Basically, he said the ball seems to be arriving at the goal line way faster than the initial impact off the striker's foot would suggest. And coming from a pro, this isn't just some casual observation from the stands. It's a profound claim. He's saying the visual and physical properties of this ball are actively deceiving the highly trained muscle memory of these elite athletes. Which brings us to the big central question of our investigation today. Are the world's best goalkeepers just making excuses for choking under pressure? Or is physics literally conspiring against them? It's a tale as old as time in football. Every single time a new official match ball drops, the goalies are usually the very first to complain. But as we're about to see, the science actually backs them up this time. There might be a very valid, measurable reason why these guys are feeling completely flummoxed. Section 1. The Goalkeeper's Dilemma. Okay, so let's look at the evidence from the pitch, where top-tier athletes are fumbling under some serious, high-stakes pressure. The anecdotal evidence is absolutely stacking up right now. Take Algeria's goalkeeper Luca Zidane. He had a truly turbulent time out there, letting 2 goals slip right through his fingers, including this incredibly embarrassing outside-of-the-boot shot from Jordan's Nazar Al-Rashdan, but Zidane isn't alone here. We've seen veteran keepers like Senegal's Edouard Mendy and Iraq's Ahmed Basel get their hands right onto incoming shots, but still completely fail to stop them. The ball is just tearing through their grasp in a way that points to a massive miscalculation of speed and force. Now, if this is giving you major déjà vu, you are definitely not alone. We saw a really similar controversy back in 2010. The World Cup in South Africa gave us the infamous Jabulani ball. If you were watching back then, you absolutely remember that the players despised the Jabulani. Top goalkeepers called it a total nightmare. They said it was horrible and inadequate because of its sudden, terrifying mid-flight trajectory changes. That thing would knuckle and swerve so unpredictably it turned basic long-range shots into a total headache. But here's the thing. The Trionda is not the Jabulani. The 2010 ball was perfectly, almost uniquely smooth, which is exactly what caused those erratic and predictable shifts in the air. For 2026, FIFA and Adidas actually intentionally designed the Trionda with a heavily textured surface to avoid a repeat of that disaster. Unlike its predecessor, the Trionda features just 4 large panels, which is actually a first for the tournament. But it's heavily engineered with super deep seams and these embossed surface icons. All of this is specifically meant to ensure sufficient, evenly distributed drag, making the ball's flight predictable and stable. Section 2. The Drag Crisis Suspect. So to figure out why a ball explicitly built for stability is still deceiving world-class keepers, we actually need to step off the grass and head into the academic wind tunnels of Japan and South Korea. This is where we meet our prime suspect, a well-documented fluid dynamics phenomenon called the drag crisis. Think of it like this. As a ball speeds through the airflow around it eventually shifts from a nice, smooth, orderly state called laminar flow into a chaotic, turbulent state. And paradoxically, when this boundary layer gets turbulent, it actually disrupts the larger wake of drag that's pulling on the back of the object. The result? A sudden, unexpected drop in air resistance. It acts like an invisible speed boost right in midair. And this is where it gets truly fascinating for the Trionda. According to models from physicist John Eric Goff and his team at the University of Tsukuba, the Trionda triggers this drag crisis at a uniquely low critical speed compared to other recent World Cup balls. Because of those deep seams and textures we just talked about, this airflow shift, this crazy sudden drop in drag, happens exactly at the speeds of your typical free kicks and corner kicks. So, as the ball comes hurtling toward the goal, it just isn't slowing down at the rate a goalkeeper's brain instinctively expects it to. Section 3. The Orientation Twist. But wait, it gets even better. Researchers uncovered an incredible plot twist in the wind tunnel. The ball doesn't actually behave the same way every time it's kicked. Academics from Seoul Women's University and the University at Tsukuba basically mounted the Trionda in a wind tunnel and tested it from multiple fixed angles. What they found was mind-blowing.
The ball's aerodynamic response changes drastically depending on which exact part of the ball is facing the wind when it gets kicked. They zeroed in on two orientations: the A90 orientation, where a flat red panel takes the brunt of the wind, and the B90 orientation, where a deep Y-shaped seam junction is pointed dead center at the front.
The results show a massive difference in performance. They found a huge gap in the mean drag coefficient between the two. Hitting the ball so that the seam junction faces forward, that B90 orientation, yields a drag coefficient of 0.231, but the panel forward A90 orientation comes in much higher at 0.266. To put that simply, if a striker happens to hit the ball right on the seam, forcing that specific orientation forward with barely any spin, the ball will fly much faster and carry significantly farther than a practically identical kick that happens to hit the flat panel. Just to get super nerdy for a second, this drag crisis transition happens exactly in the Reynolds number range of 200,000 to 250,000. Now, translated to the real world, this specific speed window happens to perfectly represent the exact velocity of a high-speed strike on goal. During this exact window, the orientation of the ball completely dictates how severe the drag crisis is. The keeper obviously has zero way of knowing whether the ball was kicked on the seam or the flat panel, but that invisible little variable is actively deciding how fast that ball is going to hit their gloves.
Section 4. The altitude alibi. So, physics is definitely messing with them, but our investigation doesn't stop at the ball itself. As if surface orientation wasn't tricky enough, there's actually a secondary culprit messing with the ball's trajectory: the physical stadiums themselves. The 2026 World Cup is spread all across North America, which means matches are being played at wildly different elevations. If you compare sea level to Mexico City, which sits at roughly 1,500 meters high, the air density is significantly lower. Lower air density inherently means less drag to slow the ball down, but it also means reduced Magnus forces. Now, the Magnus effect is what makes a spinning ball curve. So in Mexico City, a hard kick won't just fly farther, it's going to curve way less than the exact same kick at sea level in Miami. And we actually saw this environmental quirk have immediate, highly visible consequences right on the pitch. Take the match between England and Mexico. Physicists noted that in the first 20 minutes of the game, the English squad was repeatedly overhitting their long passes. They'd kick the ball down the pitch, and it would consistently sail just out of reach of their teammates. Their highly tuned muscle memory was totally calibrated for dense, sea-level air. It took them almost a quarter of the match to physically adapt to the thin, high-altitude environment. It's a real light bulb moment when you realize these aren't just sloppy, unforced errors. It's the actual physical environment working against their instincts. Section 5. Science's final verdict. Let's bring it all together. We have a ball that accelerates unexpectedly, acts completely differently depending on where it's struck, and behaves wildly depending on the altitude. Synthesizing all this incredible evidence from fluid dynamics, wind tunnels, and high-altitude physics, science gives us a final verdict. Fundamentally, the ball is structurally stable. It's for sure not zigzagging in midair like the 2010 Jabulani. However, its unique low-speed drag crisis means it maintains its velocity much longer than keepers expect. Add in the orientation quirks where two identical kicks can have two different speeds, plus the crazy altitude sensitivity, it requires massive physical adaptation from the players. And on top of all that hard data, researchers even suggest the rapidly spinning red, blue, and green colors of the ball might simply be causing a strobing visual confusion for the goalies trying to track it. Talk about a perfect storm. Which leaves us with this final, fascinating thought. The next time a blistering shot slips right through a world-class goalkeeper's fingers on the biggest stage in sports, who are you going to blame? Will you just chalk it up to human error and tournament nerves? Or will you recognize the invisible, totally unforgiving laws of fluid dynamics at play? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on the ball and your mind on the physics.